Over 70% of Georgetown, Texas home listings have had a price reduction. Not 10%, not 30%, over 70%. Let me share with you what that means for you as a buyer. You see, according to multiple listing service data, Georgetown listings, over 70% have had at least one price reduction. Not a single home has sold above asking price. That's not a collapsing market, but it is a market that has shifted hard in your favor. Let me say that again. This market has shifted hard in buyers' favor. By the way, I'm Stuart Sutton. I've been helping buyers and sellers in Georgetown, Texas for over 3 decades. And that means I've watched this market throw every cycle at us that is possible. What I'm seeing right now is something specific and actionable, and a lot of buyers are completely missing it. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 8 signs that a Georgetown, Texas seller is motivated to deal with you and what each one actually means for you. And on that list, I'm going to show you the one sign that almost every buyer misses entirely. Before we get into that list of signs, let me paint a quick picture of what's actually happening in Georgetown, Texas right now. Because once you see this, all the signs on the list are going to click with you. It wasn't that long ago when Georgetown, Texas only had a few months worth of inventory available. But as of now, we have over 6 months of inventory available. That's a 6-month supply of homes for sale. Now that is really defined as a normal market. But what it means is there are a lot more homes chasing a lot fewer buyers. It's like a restaurant in your town just added 150 seats, but the lunch crowd stayed the same. That means somebody's going to start offering free appetizers. And it's not just sitting idle. According to multiple listing service, days on the market is up about 86 days. The average Georgetown, Texas seller listed their home almost 3 months ago and still hasn't gotten an offer. So here's what 86 days does to a seller psychologically. When you've been carrying a home for 3 months, paying the mortgage, the utilities, insurance, the taxes, and you're watching new inventory hit the market every single week, you start to say yes to things that you turned down before. According to MLS data for Williamson County, there are about 4 months of inventory. Now, Georgetown is closing sales. As a matter of fact, the number of sales has increased. That means the market isn't frozen. Transactions are actually happening. They're just happening a lot more on buyers' terms than they were a few years ago. Of course, in 21 and 22, it was pretty much whatever the seller wanted. It's not that way anymore, and I can help you make smart, confident moves based on what's actually happening locally, not what the national headlines are yelling about. And what's happening locally, I believe, is a meaningful window of opportunity for buyers who know how to read those signals. Which brings me back to that list of signs. Let's go through that list, and the last one, I believe, is the most important, and the one buyers really never find out about until they're already working with someone who's been in this market for a long time. So stay with me, this is about to get good. You're scrolling through Georgetown listings and a home catches your eye. Photos look clean, professional, well lit, but then you check the listing date, went live 60 days ago. These are new photos. Why are they suddenly new? When a seller refreshes their listing photos after being on the market for a while, maybe new drone shots, new interior shots, maybe a new tour, maybe different angles on the kitchen, they're trying to generate attention. And you don't hire a photographer after months on the market because things are going great. Photographers are not cheap. After 30, 45, 60 days with no serious offers, the listing starts to feel stale. While buyers who saw it in week 1 already moved on. MLS alerts have already been fired out. A fresh new set of photos can be one way that a seller tries to re-enter the conversation. Basically, the real estate equivalent of changing your profile picture and hoping nobody notices. Here's why it matters. A photo refresh is a seller or their agent spending more money to chase the same result. It's not a sign of desperation, but it is a signal that they're not comfortable. When a vacant home gets professionally staged after sitting on the market for 60 days or more, it's not a marketing decision. It's an act of financial desperation. Staging is expensive. A full professional staging on an empty home in Georgetown, Texas can run several $1,000s up front and also includes monthly rental fees for the furniture and the decor. A seller willing to commit that mid-listing financial investment has already absorbed 60 days of carrying costs, probably a price cut or two. And they've decided that spending more money is still better than waiting longer. That's a seller who looked at their empty living room and finally said, okay, I'll rent some furniture. I'll do some staging. The Georgetown, Texas specific context here matters. We've already talked about the percentage of listings that have had price cuts, but there are also 60+% that are vacant. That's a large share of sellers paying mortgages, taxes, and insurance on homes they don't live in. The longer a vacant home sits, the more it costs every single month. And a vacant home that looks empty and unloved, well, photos cost even more. because buyers often scroll right past it. Very few people fall in love with a beige box and an echo. Staging can be a high return item and a seller's cost that, specifically because it reduces days on the market. But a seller staging mid-run isn't just trying to maximize their net, they're trying to stop the bleeding. I once saw a home priced over $1 million lose buyers because the kitchen cabinets were simply pulling away from the ceiling, an easy fix that the seller had ignored for months apparently. But those cabinets waved goodbye to sellers. Sellers who stage mid-listing are sellers who have learned that lesson because price alone just didn't do the job. If you see a vacant listing in Georgetown that suddenly added staging photos after weeks in the market, go take a look. The seller has spent more money they weren't planning to spend, and that's motivation you can negotiate from. One price cut can mean a lot of things. Maybe the seller got bad advice on their original list price. Maybe the market shifted. Maybe they just wanted to take a big swing before getting serious. But multiple small price cuts, that tells a different story. Data shows that a large percentage of Georgetown listings have had at least one price reduction, and over 22% have had multiple price cuts. That's the highest rate of any area in the country. But here's the pattern you should recognize. A seller lists at $550, nothing happens. They drop to $535, still quiet. They drop to $520. That's two cuts totaling $30,000. Here's the thing. When a seller has made two cuts and still has no deal, they mentally let go of that original number. They're not anchored to it anymore. Basically, they're anchored to the motivation of getting out. The data on where those cuts tend to land is instructive. Most Georgetown price drops have historically clustered into the 5 to 10% range. On a $500,000 home, that's $25,000 to $50,000. A buyer who sees two cuts of 3 to 4% each thinks about what a third cut would look like. Well, that's a useful place to start and offer a conversation. And there's a broader trend behind all this. And again, the increase in the number of listings that have price reductions is up over 70%. Now, expect that to drop with the recent month's data, but it's still high, especially going into the third quarter. So when you're looking at listings with multiple price cuts, structure your offer accordingly, maybe around where the next price cut might be, because that original list price and the next price cut, two very different numbers. Small price cuts are not uncommon and often mean a seller just trying to find where the price needs to be to draw interest without giving up their dream of getting a certain amount of money for their home. But one big price cut, that means something very different. Like, okay, we get it. Let's just get this thing sold. I mentioned earlier how a large percentage of listed homes are seeing price cut, the highest rate of any metro area in the country. And multiple price cuts look like this. You're priced at $850, you go to $825, you go to $800. You've made two price cuts that seem pretty substantial, and you're no longer really focused on that high number as a seller. But one big price cut, that means a seller has basically said, okay, let's get this done. So if you see a price cut from $850 to $800, you know there's a seller looking to make a sale. Now, after a big price cut, I will forewarn you, sellers are less likely to want to negotiate. But if their agent is good at what they do, you still have a clear chance of getting in on a very good value because they've been on the market for a while already. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been one big price cut, and they don't want to remain on the market again. But your offer does have to be compelling enough to rekindle their hopes of going under contract. So do your due diligence before you make an offer. Now, if the big price cut, put the home at the price it actually should be at, then you can structure your offer according to that. And homes are selling at about 97 to 97.5% of asking in Georgetown, Texas. Rates matter more to buying decisions than almost anything else right now. And motivated sellers and builders in Georgetown are doing something that can save you hundreds of dollars a month if you know to ask for it. It's called a rate buy down. And it's one of the most underused tools in buyer negotiation right now. Most buyers don't really understand how it works, which is why it works so well. Nobody negotiates for the thing they don't know about. Here's how it works in plain terms. The seller gives you a credit at closing that your lender uses to buy down your interest rate, either temporarily for the first 2 or 3 years or permanently for the life of your loan. Your sec is very simply a lower monthly payment, especially in the early years if it's a temporary buy down. And that's when cash flow matters the most. Basically, the seller is subsidizing your mortgage. Nobody puts that on a yard sign. In new subdivisions, builders are advertising buy down rates starting as low as 2.99% for the first year. And that is attractive. And closing cost credits are common with nearly every builder. And everyone thinks, well, sellers just can't do that, regular sellers. Well, yes, they can. So this isn't just a new construction story. These buy downs are becoming more common in resale transactions right now and cost anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 or more, depending on the price of the home, in concessions from the seller. And here's the part that most buyers get wrong. When a seller drops their price by $10,000, that saves you about $53 a month. That's nice. Maybe you can get a gym membership. But if that same money is applied to a rate buy down, it can save you $200 or more per month in the first 2 years. That's nearly 4 times the monthly impact. Same money, very different outcome. See, math can be fun. A lot of sellers don't lead with these buy downs, but they'll offer a price cut first because it feels more concrete, more real. But if you or your agent know how to ask for the buy down instead, you can often squeeze more value out of the same concession. If you're financing your purchase in Georgetown, Texas right now, this is a conversation worth having. This one is more common than most buyers realize. And once you know what it means, you'll never look at a listing update the same way again. Say a home's been in the market 45 days, 60 days. The seller hadn't cut the price yet, but suddenly the listing description is different. It's changed. The photos are different. Maybe they're from different angles. Maybe they have a slightly different style to them. It's weirdly the same photos in the same house, but it looks like nothing's really happened. But there is something that you have to look for. The real estate company has changed. Asking price, it's still the same. What just happened? Well, the seller decided the agent they had wasn't getting the job done. So they brought in the new and improved model. No judgment here. Agents get fired. It happens. But there are usually a few reasons behind a switch like this. Maybe the first agent generally wasn't doing the job well, and the seller saw the writing on the wall before their home being for sale became the neighborhood's permanent fixture. And maybe the agent was doing the job, including the hard part, and that's telling the seller the price needs to come down. But the seller wasn't ready to hear it. So they went shopping from someone willing to tell them what they wanted to hear. I've seen that happen. Maybe the first agent suggested too high a price, and the seller suspected as much, but wanted to test the market anyway, because it'd be great if they could get that high price, but reality eventually caught up with everyone. And here's why this matters. Switching agents reflects a seller's willing to make a big move, a big decision to get to a successful sale. Stick with me here. If they changed agents but didn't lower the price, then a price drop is probably inevitable. Watch for it because you know it's probably coming. If they changed agents and dropped the price at the same time, that means they found an agent more persuasive than the last one, which usually means their negotiating stance just got more flexible too. The bottom line is a change in real estate agents is basically a seller raising their hand and saying, okay, I'm serious now. And it reflects strong motivation toward a successful sale, pretty much every time. A lot of people sell homes in Georgetown, Texas, but very few are truly familiar with the Georgetown, Texas real estate market. If I can help you, call or text. I do personally return all my calls and texts. If you're not quite ready for that, download the Ultimate Retirement Guide for Georgetown, Texas in the description below. No hassle, no obligation. Most sellers wait for you to do an inspection, find problems, and then ask for repairs or credits. That's the normal sequence. So when a seller offers you an inspection credit before you've had an inspection, that's not standard. That's probably a seller who's already been through this and really doesn't want to go through it again. Let's think about what that means. The home has probably been under contract with a previous buyer. The buyer did their inspection, found issues, and either terminated the contract or asked for so much in repairs that the seller just couldn't swallow it. And now the seller is back on the market, starting over, looking at carrying that property through another cycle, basically reliving the same thing they just went through. So instead, they flipped the script. Instead of waiting on your inspector to find the problem and create a tense negotiation and hoping they can make it this time, they get ahead of it. It'd be better if they went ahead and made the repairs they know need to be made. But instead, some will offer a credit up front. Could be $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, depending on what they already know the issues are. Now, in Georgetown, Texas' current market, homes are selling at about 97 to 97.5% of asking. On a $500,000 home, that's about $15,000 in effective negotiation. A preemptive inspection credit often stacks on top of that, not instead of it. And since the median days on the market is about 3 months, motivated sellers are competing for qualified buyers. Yes, sellers are competing for you. Let that sink in for a second. A seller offering an inspection credit is saving you time and friction. But don't stop there. Use it as a floor, not a ceiling. If they're offering an upfront inspection credit just to avoid inspection negotiations, that's a seller who already knows where to find. So be sure to factor that into your offer and definitely still get your inspection. The credit isn't a substitute for checking out the house. It's just a start. When a home goes for sale to for lease, this is a sign that buyers rarely catch. It's a strong one though. Here's what happens. A home sits on the market for 2 months, 3 months or more. No offers, one or more price cuts. The seller and the agent aren't seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, so they pull out plan B, offer for lease as well. When this happens, negotiating stances suddenly get more flexible. And it makes sense because let's face it, the seller doesn't really want to lease the house. Nobody dreams of becoming a landlord on a Tuesday afternoon out of nowhere. They really just want the monthly burden off their plate, especially if the house is sitting vacant and quietly draining their bank account. Adding a lease option is basically the seller waving the white flag while still holding on to a tiny bit of hope. There's hardly an owner anywhere who'd really genuinely rather lease than sell, because between tenant risk and maintenance and the headaches of owning that rent property and the joy of the 2 a.m., the water heaters making the noise calls, renting your home is not for the faint of heart. If they actually wanted to be landlords, they would have listed it at least from day one, not pivoted to it 3 months in. And here's the part that's working in your favor. The rental market is soft right now as well. Tenants aren't going to come knocking quickly. You're not going to be flooded with people wanting to lease their home. If the lease isn't producing results fast, the sale price tends to loosen up right along with it. The seller basically has 2 slow-moving options, and that increases the pressure to be more open in the negotiating on the sale. So keep an eye on this. It's subtle, but it can absolutely pay off. First, let's be very clear about open houses in the real estate market. Not true in every market, but in Georgetown, Texas, and the surrounding markets I've worked in for my long career. The motivation behind open houses is not what you think it is. Open houses pretty much have one main purpose, and that's to help the agent sitting on the open house meet prospective buyers, build rapport with them, and represent them in a purchase. It's a numbers game through and through. Selling your house, at best, is a happy accident. The second reason for open houses is so the listing agent can prove to the seller that they're working, that they're doing something, even if that something is mostly sitting in a lawn chair with a stack of flyers. What's fascinating is watching the process up close. My wife Rebecca and I see open houses every single week. As someone who previews homes in person and has since I started in the real estate business, in order to match them up with buyers, it's interesting to me to walk into open houses in Georgetown, Texas, and meet an agent who isn't the listing agent. That's the typical case. What's really interesting is when they're from a different market. They don't really know much about the house, much less about Georgetown, Texas real estate. They're basically a substitute teacher who got handed the lesson plan 5 minutes before class. How does that help anybody? Watching the market daily has shown me that mid-listing open houses are often an attempt to expose the house to more buyers. As feeble as it might be, when you see an open house held week after week, month after month, a couple of things are actually happening. To be clear, open houses aren't automatically a sign of desperation, but when a home's been sitting a while and suddenly open houses become the weekly ritual, it's often the agent and the seller throwing things at the wall to see what might stick. And here's the part that sounds backward. Studies actually show that the more a home is held open during its listing period, the less it tends to sell for when it finally sells. It sounds contradictory until you realize the real cause. The home is priced too high. It sits longer, racks up more open houses along the way, and more days in the market. It's not that open houses hurt the price, it's that the overpriced homes collect open houses. Some agents swear by open houses, and I don't doubt them, that's absolutely fine. But real traceable success from open houses is a small minority of sales, and I'm being generous with that. So here's why this matters for you as a buyer. A home with repeated open houses are practically waving a flag that says, this price isn't working, so keep an eye out. Homes with a pattern of repeat open houses tend to be future price drops, and that's where you can quietly build a little leverage. This is a sign most buyers never find, and it's the most powerful one on the list. Here's what happens. A home sits on the market for 90, 100, 180 days, no offers, maybe a price cut or multiple price cuts, and the seller and their agent realize that the big number for days in the market is now working against them. Buyers see that big number and assume something must be wrong with the property, even if the only thing wrong with the property actually is the price. So they do something that's entirely legal, common, and invisible to most buyers. They pull the listing off the multiple listing service, they wait a little bit, and then they relist it. It's got a new listing date, days in the market resets to 0, and the MLS alerts buyers who fit that profile and send that listing out again. Buyers who passed on it a couple months ago get that notification about a new listing, and it looks fresh, but in essence, it's real estate's version of the going out of business sale, and then they don't go out of business. In 25, Alto's research tracked nearly 1.4 million MLS withdrawals nationally. The homes weren't sold, they were homes that were pulled, held, and relaunched. And they actually developed something called the relist ratio. It's a reliable indicator of market demand in housing. When demand weakens, relist activities rise. And right now, relist activity is rising. Here's a critical detail. Most multiple listing services track two separate numbers. The first is days in the market. The second is cumulative days in the market. So if someone pulls a home in the market and puts it back on in short order, you're going to see both 0 days for new and then the actual time it's been on the market. The second is cumulative days. In order to zero that number out, you've got to stay off the market for at least 90 days in our MLS. So if someone does that, both of those numbers are going to show 0, and it really looks like a new listing at that point. But any agent can press an icon to see the history. And I know that if it came off the market 93 days ago, I know exactly what they did. They pulled it off the market, reset everything, and put it back on the market. And I don't begrudge that whatsoever. But knowing what has happened is important toward knowing the status and the seriousness of the seller mindset for that listing. Now, here's some more information. When a seller relists the home at the same price, it rarely works. I know that's shocking, but apparently buyers can do math too. When they relist at meaningful lower prices, it signals that the seller has gotten serious and it resets a conversation. So that reset is the buyer's time. You need to see if a listing has been on the market before, what price it was on before, if it came off the market, came back on. Basically, you need to know the history. And unfortunately, you can't necessarily do that as a buyer. So if the seller has actually cycled through all that, they've been on the market, they came off the market, and they relisted at a new price, well, guess what? They're in a different mindset than they were before. And this is the window buyers should not miss. By the way, new contracts in Georgetown are up. So demand is rebuilding. The sellers who are most motivated right now are the ones you want to find before the market absorbs them. So if you're looking to buy in Georgetown and you want someone who knows these signals and can turn them into a better situation for you, give me a call or text me. I'm old-fashioned. I do respond to my texts and calls personally. Or you can book a call in the link below. No hassle, no obligation. We can lay out, map your plan together. No pressure, just a real conversation about what's happening in Georgetown, Texas right now and how to make it work for you. Again, I'm Stuart Sutton, and remember, it's your choice, so make it a powerful day.